Here's a thought. What if the kids of Homestuck, instead of entering Spurb, were thrown into the wonderful world of Pokemon? Specifically, after they finished freaking the heck out, what would their teams be? This combination of two of my great loves was something I've been thinking about for quite a bit, but with the growing hype around Pokemon due to Legends Arceus the last few months, I decided I'm finally gonna do something about it. With art. To be honest, these art videos are going to be more experimental practice than anything else. Fun fact, despite having a degree in animation with a focus in storyboarding, I am admittedly a poor digital artist. I do my best work on paper. The smaller the drawing space, the better, especially if it's on lined paper. Do I hate myself? Any of the art that you may have seen me post on Twitter, Facebook, or DeviantArt in the last few years are typically scans of my sketchy drawings that I've cleaned up and colored in Clip Studio Paint. This will be my first attempt to finish a drawing from beginning to end using only my computer. I plan on making more videos like this for this channel, as well as putting some videos on my long-abandoned animation channel over the next few weeks. So enough chit-chat, let's get to the actual Speedpaint. I'll be using Clip Studio Paint EX and a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet. Since brainstorming her team was rather straightforward and her pose came immediately to me, Rose Lalonde is the beta kid I started with. Ironically, Rose is my least favorite character. I started my rough sketch on a raster layer with a mechanical pencil setting. You may have noticed that I made Rose 5 heads high. Your typical human figure is 6 to 7 heads high, so Rose looks more petite than usual. But that's the thing. Remember, at the start of Homestuck, the beta kids are, drumroll, 13 years old! Like, Rose has only been 13 for a few months. She's a middle schooler. Your average 13-year-old is about 5 feet tall. On top of that, giving her a generously sized head lends to a more cartoony appearance. We're not going for realism here. This ain't Detective Pikachu, dog. For the uninitiated, Homestuck is a very wacky sci-fi fantasy webcomic that involves 4 kids essentially playing a co-op video game to save the world. Their travels have them making friends, creating enemies, and learning new perspectives, all while growing into the heroes they're destined to become in this humorous, humanistic take on the creation myth. I read Homestuck in my mid-20s, and while I was not the core demo for it by a long shot, I still had fun with the content generated by a very talented fan base, and enjoyed the webcomic's colorful characters and the off-the-wall dialogue. So much dialogue! I can't recommend Homestuck if you hate to read, since it's got a larger word count than the Bible. I also can't recommend it if you're photosensitive, due to all the flashy GIFs you'll be consuming, and yes, I do pronounce it GIFs. Oops, silly me. I want my final lines to be clean and easier to edit, so I want this line art layer to be a vector layer. I've also changed my eraser to a vector eraser and have it set to erase up to intersections, so now I'll be able to get the clean edges for Rose's sharp corners, on top of being able to change the line widths anytime I like. I decided early on that the kids would have clothes reminiscent of the protagonists from the Pokemon games, with Rose's blatantly based on the leather jacket style for Dawn from the recent Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes. Dave would probably see Rose's outfit and immediately question her taste in games. Platinum is the best Generation 4 game ever, after all. Rose would feel contrary. She likes the revamped contests, the grand underground, the new ball capsules, and the styles, of course. Dave would lessen his stance, pointing out that at least she didn't pick Diamond or Pearl. Of course, she'd say with a smile, she's not a masochist. I chose to stick with the original purple colors of the leather jacket style, though I did toy around with the idea of mimicking her god-tier robes. Her dark squiddle dress is referenced by the pure white squiddle on the back of her black jacket. I want that to be the focal point. Confession time, I have a hard time drawing human figures with my tablet, and I totally forgot to get references for her, so I am a little underwhelmed by my drawing of Rose here today. I'm sure John, Jade, and Dave's will look much better in comparison. Rose was kind of a warm-up. Humans are one of the main things I wanted to improve on when working on this project. Another was my speed. Hand drawings take me so much time, and if I want to turn my story ideas into actual graphic novels someday, I've got to get better at drawing human figures and drawing them quickly. I'm hoping that videos like these will motivate me to improve, since I struggle with embarrassment over my lack of skills, and nothing motivates me to improve more than sheer embarrassment and trial and error. When I started working on the jacket details, I was struggling on keeping the squiddle symmetrical. And then I remembered that Clip Studio Paint literally has a symmetry roller. Just a few clicks, and now when I draw on one side of the line, it's mirrored on the other half. I also made use of the Simplify Line tool to make the curve of her face smoother. A little bit of cleanup and some line weight editing, and voila! Rose is off to a good start. Now we start with the first of Rose's team, Blastoise. Since her consorts are turtles and Rose's associated element is water, especially with her game planet being the land of light and rain, a turtle-based water type is right up her alley. Spoilers, I gave 3/4 of the beta kids the Kanto starters. I think you Homestucks can guess which one got which. Though I don't think Rose's first Pokemon was her Squirtle. Given how many turtles Rose traumatized during her time in Spurb, I can't imagine that her Blastoise came to her that willingly. I bet Rose chain encountered hundreds of Squirtles to get this guy. I bet he has perfect IVs. She probably shiny hunted too. How many shiny Pokemon do you think Rose collected, and how many did she actively release in front of Dave just to see his reaction? Those stupid hydro cannons are the worst things to draw perspective-wise. Oh gosh. But animals are the best things to draw, in my opinion. As a Warrior Cats fan, I got a lot of practice with quadrupedal mammals, specifically. I decided to make use of the circle tool to make Blastoise's round arms, since I did not want to deal with drawing circles myself. They ended up looking a lot cleaner than the rest of his line art, which was frustrating, but the drawing is going to be so small, I shouldn't be sweating over such minor details. Like the fact that I later delete Blastoise's other arm, just so I don't have to deal with perspective. Yay! Next up we have Malamar, a dark and psychic type squid Pokemon originally from the Kalos region. Rose has mingled with the horror terrors, beings of the Outer Rim with many tentacles who seem to have no clear agenda, but a lot of power to give. Either that, or I could be thinking about the Eldritch Princess doll in Rose's home? Her Inkay probably evolved if/when Rose goes grimdark in the world of Pokemon. Let me just say, this may be the first and last time I draw a cephalopod because I struggled so hard with getting this guy drawn. I wonder if I flipped him upside down, if that would have made an easier time. I fix his line art a whole lot, much later on in the process. Rose's third team member is Gothitelle. Gothitelle are psychic Pokemon able to predict the future through the movement of the stars. Also, its pre-evolution Gothorita is seen as the equivalent of the Virgo sign in Unova region's horoscope. And the Rosemary fans rejoiced! Gothitelle is also, in my opinion, linked to the very same Eldritch Princess doll from earlier. And as a seer of sorts herself, Rose's favorite Pokemon would be ones who could see the future. Yikes, forget horror terrors. Gothitelle's hair is the real nightmare. Oy. Rose's fourth member is Meowstic. Female Meowstics are said to be selfish, aggressive, and charmingly unfriendly compared to their defensive and protective male counterparts. I think Rose would find this psychically gifted cat to be very appealing. I don't think I got the expression for this cat correct. Instead of a Pokemon, this Meowstic looks more like she was designed by Maxwell Adams. The penultimate Pokemon for Rose's team is Absol, the Pokemon that predicts natural disasters so well that people have mistaken it as a harbinger of doom. The Bruno of Pokemon, I guess. Absol's name in Latin means away from the sun, referencing its dark typing and also solar eclipses, often seen as signs of the end times. The fact that it's considered unlucky is all superstition, and Rose would know this. After all, even if a Pokemon with the super luck ability could be cursed, she figures she has more than enough luck to share. And since Rose is a God tier player, and I always give the God tier players their sixth partner being a legendary or mythical, her Pokemon is Uxie. This sleepy yellow pixie is said to be the being to bring knowledge and problem-solving to the world of Pokemon. This works well given Rose's knowledge for seeking as a seer of light. Uxie could also be based on the mythical mirror Yata no Kagami, one of the 3 sacred treasures of Japan, which is said to embody wisdom and honesty. And hey, you find it in a cave in a lake! Water association yet again! Line art done. Let's get coloring. I first select the line art vector layer and set it as a reference layer. I then select the line art and make a fill in the new raster layer. Since the line art layer is set as the reference, when I use the paint bucket tool on the new raster layer, the color will stay contained inside of the lines. I also make a second raster layer and clip the layer to that solid fill. Now anything I paint in the clipped layer will only show on the opaque surfaces of the layer below it. After color picking from the photo reference in the sub window in the top corner, I get painting. I decided to make Rose's headband golden yellow to signify that, yes, she is a god tier in this group photo. I made sure that even the highlights and darker shadows of Rose's outfit have a bit of purple in the tints and shades. Rose would almost exclusively use Ultra Balls. She values certainty in her Pokemon capturing, thank you very much. Luck is no joking matter here. She's not gonna pull a Chugga Conroy and capture Groudon in a Nest Ball. Blastoise is next, and we're going to use the same method. Though I have to get a little creative when it comes to coloring his chin. I gotta make sure I get that gap between the lines. It's here I decide that I need a specific tone of purple for the shadows, and I need its opposite, a very light tint of yellow, for the remainder of the piece. I've gotta keep the shadows and highlights a uniform value. I create 2 clipping layers at the top of the flat color. One will be the highlights, and one will be the shadows. The shadows were a bit heavy, so I decided to experiment with the kneaded eraser setting, and created a messy gradient. Both lights and shadows are set on overlay with lower opacity because of personal preference. I just like the way it looks. Malamar was next. I put down the flat colors, but I was so annoyed by the goofy-looking line art that I quickly decided to move on to Gothitelle. I'll come back to him later. Gothitelle was chef's kiss, a joy to paint. The shadows were a little more difficult in all the cramped spaces, but I was determined to get a soft gradient on the white bows with the kneaded eraser. The highlights had to be painted in areas to define the disc-like shape of her hair. Meowstic was relatively easy as well. There are only 4 colors in her palette after all. I was so worried that Meowstic's white fur would be too pale and would fight for the focal point of the white squiddle. Luckily it wasn't too pale for that, but it was pale enough that I couldn't use overlay on the shadow layer. I had to switch the shadows to multiply to be seen. Absol is so simple color-wise, even easier than Meowstic. So I decided to add a little extra eye shine for the heck of it. Everybody loves Absol. Everybody. Shadow and highlight placement were almost instinctively placed, though I had to put the shadows on multiply again. I also toned Absol's fur a little later on so as not to compete with the squiddle focal point. And now for Uxie. I shaded Uxie with the reference colors before adding my uniform shadow tone. Oops. Looking good. Oh wait, gotta fix this guy. I erased the face and redrew it. I added a few tentacles for the hair, adjusted some of the line widths, and started coloring again. I added highlights using both a watery ink brush for the tentacles and a gouache brush for the body. I colored the line art around the yellow body marks after making sure to take my eraser off its current vector setting. It was here that I realized that the profile in my drawing was what was throwing me off, so I started adjusting facial features like a Pablo Picasso painting. That's more like it. Now to find a good free photo from Pexels for the background. No, not this one. The sunlight on the back of the group doesn't work with the shadows and the highlights I already got going for me. I better keep looking. The gang's all here. Not too bad for a first attempt in less than a week. The only thing I would change would be the anatomy references and the shadows for Rose. It would help to have a location for my light source as well, but it still looks pretty good, all things considering. What do you think? Both about the art and for Rose's team. What do you think the other Beta Kids Pokemon teams are? What about the Trolls teams? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.